Today, my guest is Brian Workman, who needs absolutely no introduction. He's a good friend of mine, and I really like him. So today, after church, I went to sing. I hadn't eaten there.
I haven't eaten there since before COVID. They wouldn't let anybody in for a while.
We were sitting there at the booth, just sitting there. Finally, some guy in front of me said, "Hey, y'all have to go up there and order." I was waiting on him to come and wait on me. That's a whole different thing, isn't it?
It is. I think COVID changed a lot of things, but
I mean, I don't really understand it, but I know it's real. And there wasn't many people in there like there used to be.
no. More choices, but getting people hired to be waiters and waitresses and help and
What's Jim doing on a day like today?
farming, or he was farming. I'm not sure what he's doing today.
Off free will?
Yeah.
How many acres is there?
Well, he had 15, but we sold out 9 of it, so he's got a little over 5, I think, left.
Can he do much? What kind of farming with 6 acres?
Not much. Mostly it's covered up with barns, and they're building a house on it now.
So would he have a livestock?
He had some horses, some goats, some donkeys over time. It's mostly somebody who grew up on a farm, wanted to have some of that childhood back, as some people want to have cars or whatever.
Yeah.
So that both my parents grew up on a farm, so that was kind of their going back to what they knew.
Now, were they from Middle Tennessee or
West Tennessee? So they're about 45 minutes northwest of Jackson, Tennessee.
What brought them here?
J.C. Penney's.
J.C. Penney.
So
Where was J.C. Penney at the time?
it was downtown, and they were moving it. Bob Sane was the president. He was moving it from downtown to the Cleveland Mall, which is now Life Care. So Dad got brought in to, as I think the number 2, come in, help train new buyers, train staff, train everybody, and help get the store moved from one location to the other. And then in that process, they found out they were pregnant with me. They decided they didn't want to continue to keep moving every 2 to 3 years, which is how you moved up in J.C. Penney's. So Mr. Bender, who had sold them their house, Dad went and talked to him on the advice of my mom, who was working at First Federal, which is now where you go pay for your license on 17th and Keith. She was working for Phil Russell, real estate agents that were coming in a good bit. And she's like, you know what, I think a lot of them aren't very organized. I think you would do really well at it. So he went and talked to Mr. Bender and got licensed and made 2, 3, 4 times what he made being the next year, his first year in real estate, versus what he had made working for J.C. Penney's, and decided that he thought that's what he wanted to do. And then fast forward a couple years later, Mr. Bender, as a side comment, said, "You guys, y'all need to get selling. I'm not going to be here forever." My dad followed him into his office after that and like, "What do you mean you're not going to be here forever?" He goes, "Well, I'm going to retire at some point." What does that look like? How does that work? And then they wound up striking up a deal, and he wound up buying the company somewhere in 78, 79, and has owned it since.
What year did he get his real estate license?
I think it had been 77 or 78, somewhere.
So he hadn't been selling long.
No, he had not. That was probably a very gutsy move.
About how old would he have been then?
27, 28. But
That's
yeah,
something.
yeah,
That took a lot of nerve.
It took a lot of nerve, and it's pretty impressive for somebody who grew up on a pig and cow farm in northwest Tennessee to get here and buy that company and be probably the youngest person at the company, and probably the least experienced person at the company to want to go in and buy it. But Mr. Bender treated him extremely well. gave him a very easy deal to say yes to.
Now, did he sell shoes at JCPenney? Somebody told me that he was a shoe salesman at one point.
That's possible. I don't know. I'd have to ask him. I know he helped train everybody, and I know for a good long while, his best networking was the people he had trained at JCPenney's, because he would leave the office and walk around and talk to everyone that he had trained about anybody they talked to, because he had trained them. You know, ask how their family's doing, ask about their occupation, ask them about their recreation, ask them about their dreams, figure out those things that's going on in their life, make a connection to where they want to, you know, keep coming back because they know you care. So he had trained them to do that. So, you know, he went back and was like, hey, did anybody mention, you know, new job, needing to leave town, all that stuff. And so that was a good networking base for him at the very beginning.
Has he ever talked about how the real estate business was in the late 70s versus now?
He's talked about obviously the interest rates, way less, you know, realtors, but way less houses and builders and stuff. But it was, I think, a bit quicker for sure. Now we have all the, you know, far more hoops as far as your bank and your appraisal, and like we were talking about earlier, termite inspections, home inspectors, all those things. And a lot of what he did at the beginning was new construction, whether it's Foxfire or some of the subdivisions off Mouse Creek. He just get in there, and the builders were putting them up just about as fast as he could get the next one under contract.
I wonder if they even required appraisals back then. I guess, I mean, compared to now, I guess they had a termite letter and maybe an appraisal for a bank, and that might have been about it.
I think there for a point, appraisers were in-house, so the bank would do their own type of evaluation, and then eventually the most appraisers went independent. I know Larry Everhart, who's since passed away, but his son still practices here in town, does a really good job. He worked as an agent for Dad for a while, and then transitioned into being an appraiser early 80s, I think.
I wonder if appraisers will, you know, you can get a survey online, basically, not an exact survey, but that's coming.
Yeah.
And you can get properties, you know, how many owners and how old it is, pretty close. I wonder when they'll just have an appraisal just spit out without having a guy go out.
I don't think you'll ever get to there, because honestly, that's what Zillow, you know, there's estimate, or Realtor.com, their estimate. But if you scroll down to the bottom, they'll tell you they're within 10% of the value, maybe 62% of the time. That means the other 38%, they're 20% one way or the other. So if you're talking a $400,000 house, that means they're a third of the time they're 80,000 under or 80,000 over. So that house really could be anywhere between 480 and 320. So, you know, going based on the computer is probably not the best. You need to have someone that's a third party, independent, no skin in the game person to give it value, to me.
Because they could be on Zillow, they could have sold it to their brother or sister or whatever.
They most of those websites never call to just, you know, call and check in and try to justify the sales price. So they have no idea.
Plus, the house may not even still be there.
Or they don't know the condition on the inside. Zillow has no concept. They never walked in it. They've
not been in it.
Yeah. Whereas the appraiser shows up, he checks especially if in an FHA or VA appraisal, he'll look at the fuse box. He'll look at your plumbing.
I always wondered why the appraiser goes into detail. They're not a home inspector, but they do check out some sort of minimums, I guess.
Yeah, so depending on whether it's FHA, VA, HUD, Fannie, Freddie, they all have slightly different requirements that the appraisers have been licensed to give an opinion on. Home loans still haven't required to see your home inspection. There might be a point to where they come to the point they want to see that as well. But again, an appraisal is an opinion. Just like if I go out and look at a house or you go out and look at a house, we can both give our opinion. The appraiser's been more trained, schooled to give his opinion, and usually they can be in the business less than you and I would have, but gone through that education and be pretty close to where we would have been. You and I have been doing it longer. We've got a little bit better, guesstimate, gut, whatever you want to call it, to go in. But the same thing was the home inspection. It's their opinion. All of them have different opinions. All of them, some things matter more to others, like we were talking about earlier. Just from history, where they got burnt or where they whatever. So they tend to pay more attention to one thing or the other. It's interesting. It would be interesting to see what happens as we go down further. We talked about the contract when you started in real estate. The contract was a triplicate page. That was one page. And
carbon copies.
Carbon copies.
Well, actually, when I first started, you had to put the carbon under it.
Yeah.
They didn't even have that handy three thing. You put and you try to put the contract, carbon, and say bear down, so you'd get 3 copies.
So now it's 10 pages for the contract, which gets edited every year. For house, it's about 8 or 9. For land, it's 8 or 9 for commercial, and each one of them have their different addendums you add on. So again, like we talked about earlier, every one of those things that get edited and every one of those paragraphs have to do with a lawsuit. Somebody lost somewhere, and it gets edited and added to and expounded upon and re-edited every year. And it's not because we like it to be that long, but it is. At the end of the day, it's there for both the seller's protection and the buyer's protection to make sure that everything's been explained, everything that previously had been left up to chance or not being disclosed by the seller or buyer. Now at least it's brought to the forefront, so you as the seller know everything about the buyer that would possibly affect their ability, which is why most sellers now want a pre-approval letter to begin with. And you as a buyer should know most of the things that are going wrong with the house, so you could point your home inspector in the right direction, or whether you even want to spend that much money to put it under contract and pay for the appraisal and do the home inspection and do the termite inspection, because you start to add all that up, it gets pretty.
Plus flood letters. Don't forget that. That's a whole nother thing.
It's becoming a little bit more prevalent. As flood insurance and the FEMA maps, I think the new ones came out in the last year or so. They're not in wide circulation yet, but they'll get there. And FEMA has talked about not subsidizing your insurance rate, and if that were to ever happen, your $450 flood insurance bill a year could turn into $4,500 flood insurance bill a year. So that obviously wouldn't be good for a lot of homeowners out there.
Does flood insurance, they typically have a cap on what they'll pay. They used to. I don't know if
they still do or not.
It had a maximum they'd pay, and I don't know if that was still. I remember when they didn't even have flood insurance, Bradley County.
Yeah, well, that's where all the development that's gone on, which you know really well, and the amount of land you have to capture the water as it runs down, and why we have the water tower we do next to UL Ross, why they've widened the creeks where they widen them to try to get water to run off. Why now most development over an acre requires you to have a
SWIP.
What's
stormwater?
Yeah, stormwater prevention
program.
So, which is I'm on the chamber board. I love the chamber board. I think the chamber's an exceptional organization, and a lot of people want to sit there and talk about Cleveland's big enough, and we've got all these problems because of all the development that we've gone through. But you've got to look at development and the expansion of the city as a kind of a plus minus. No one could have foretold that we were going to lose Bowater. No one could, no one understands how close we were to losing Whirlpool when it bought out Maytag. Well, if we're not constantly trying to add new companies in, and we lose one of those people, I mean, we could be one of those. We could be Detroit, when all the auto factories shut down, and they had a 30% unemployment rate. We could be that real quick if we're relying on 2 or 3 manufacturers. I mean, what would have happened in 1980 when you were, young fellow blowing and going and building, and Whirlpool or Maytag or Magic Chef at that point, or Bowater would have closed down. What was the percentage of the population that would have then been unemployed?
It would have had ripple effects that we'd still be trying to fight.
So you're Doug Barry's at the chamber, who's an exceptional at his job, and you're Mike Griffin, who runs the chamber. Them bringing in new companies, I mean, the saying goes, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. There is no standing still. I agree with that, and the chamber should be looked at like that. It's like they've got to bring in new companies. They've got to bring in new businesses. The word industrial, or the phrase industrial base, it still applies. You've got to have those industrial jobs in order for your service jobs, your Jenkins Delis, your Aubrey's restaurants, to be able to have someone to serve food to. For your Larry McDaniels to be able to sell clothes to. For your Dee Burris to be able to build houses for. If you don't have those, and all those companies and all those jobs leaves, then you just have service industry serving other service industries, and it's going to stop real quick. You've got to have those industrial-based jobs coming in.
It becomes a thing of its own, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it just becomes a monster that you can't control without growth.
Yeah,
I believe.
You've got to have growth. I think our city and county fathers have done as good of a job, if not better, than most could have, with the amount of tax base they have that come in to try to do their best to widen the roads as best they can, build the schools for the new people coming in. And I mean, we did over the last 2 or 3 years have a lot of people coming in. Tennessee was ranked number 3 in 2001 as far as one-way destinations, behind Florida and Texas. I think Florida and Texas were number 1 and 2 again in 2022, but I think we dropped to like number 6. I think North Carolina jumped above us.
Wonder why we dropped to.
I'm not sure.
Because we're the same.
Yeah, we're the same. But we did have a lot of people move in. But for the most part, why Cleveland has grown is that we now have at least 1 or 2 of everything. We don't have people from Cleveland High School and Bradley and Walker Valley leaving to go somewhere else. They can have a job here. Well, if I have 4 kids, you have your kids, and they, instead of going off somewhere else to a big city, they stay here. Well, if they have 3 more kids, I mean, that's your expansion. That's the biggest portion of your expansion.
And we're getting a lot. Ottawa's bigger because Chattanooga's grown. And Cleveland's getting a little bigger on that end of town because Ottawa's grown.
Yeah.
So everything just keeps getting bigger. You ever watch that abandoned on TV? What they call that? Abandoned places, where these towns that just had gone abandoned because of
just died.
Yeah, just because that does happen.
Oh
right?
yeah.
I mean, you take I believe Polk County was more busier than Bradley County at one time in history, when they had the
river,
copper mines and everything.
And you were moving stuff by water.
Yeah.
Obviously,
and
they've
then
got
Cleveland
more
was
water.
sort of a,
an away station.
Yeah, until we got the
interstate.
I think I guess the train station, probably. But before that, there was a stagecoach routes.
You know more about Cleveland history than I do.
Well, I mean, there wasn't really one here.
Oh, okay.
Except coming down through what is now Inman. That was a stagecoach. That's why they stopped at Taylor Springs, because that was the water. That was a stop on the stagecoach route.
I've walked around and driven around Taylor Springs, but I haven't gone down there to look at it yet.
Do you do a lot of? For some reason, I'm thinking you do a lot of hiking. Is that? Or
No.
What is your hobby?
4 kids in real estate. That's about
Nothing
my hobby.
else?
No, I don't have
4
time.
kids?
Yeah.
Gosh.
We're blessed. My wife is a wonderful mother and wife, and we.
If I remember, she's not bad looking. Is that the right one?
She's not bad looking either. No, I think she's gorgeous. But we had 9 pregnancies with 10 kids. Miscarriage, my oldest miscarriage, my next miscarriage twins, the next miscarriage, and then the last one. So we were lucky to have 4 children here. We love them to death. We homeschool. So we get to spend the best parts of their days with them versus other people. Love the school system. I'm a product of it. Nothing against it. It's what we chose to do. It's worked out great for us.
Remember when homeschool was not many people did that, right?
No.
It was like offshoot religious groups that did that, right?
I had one or two friends I knew that homeschooled. My wife was homeschooled in Atlanta 'cause she grew up in less affluent, not the safest areas of Atlanta, and that's something her mom chose to do. It's not something either one of us ever thought we would do. It's just kind of worked out that way. But whether you want to call people, the people you hang out with or whatever, your tribe, that just wound up being a group of people we wound up being with. We saw the positivity. It happened to work in their families. We thought we'd try it a year, and if it didn't work, we'd just go back, and here we are, year 6 or 7 of it, and it's been a blast.
How do you do that? They send you curriculums or something?
So there's several different called co-ops, I guess, cooperatives. You can either do no co-op and figure out your own and just work with the county and the state to make sure you're turning in what you need to turn in. There's things called umbrella schools that hold all your, what's the word I'm looking for? All the data on your kids when they take your tests, all that kind of stuff. You have co-ops who have gone together and figured out your curriculum for the whole year, for every year, and then it's just kind of repeated year. This is what you do for 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, whatever, and then you just kind of buy that, but you're in groups of people throughout the county or area that they're all doing the same thing as you, so you wind up having like a community. My oldest daughter this year is 18, she did really good on the ACTs, already got a couple of different scholarships to do at Lee, so that worked out good. But she's just dual enrolled at Lee this year. That's all she did, so that worked great. A couple of our other kids go to a co-op in Chattanooga that we love. It's called Hilger, if everybody wants to look it up. But I think all the teachers there are certified teachers. They just chose not to teach in the school system anymore. So they've got certified teachers who teach them 2 or 3 days a week.
So they have to take specific tests to know that they've past levels?
Well, and then you're proven to the state, since you're not in the state school and you're not taking the TCAP or whatever, that you are teaching your children what they need to learn to.
And that they are at this level, 12th grade, whatever.
Yeah. But like I said, Olivia, my oldest daughter, did extremely. I feel very proud. I think she did extremely well in the ACT. She's already gotten scholarships from Lee, so I feel like my wife did an exceptional job keeping them on the path.
Do they go into a room and do their?
Yeah, so they go.
How do they transition from just getting up and?
So when they go to, it's not too undifferent than going to college, because you, instead of being in college 5 days a week from 8 to 5, you go for hours, particular hours a day or whatever. So it's roughly the same. You're just kind of applying that concept to little kids. So they'll go 1 day a week or 2 days a week, and they kind of get what they need to learn, and then they go back and home and practice it. So for us, it's the kitchen table, or it's outside on the screen porch, and my wife's going over it with them. And then depending on when this child's doing this, I've got one that does horses, I've got one that does something else. So when Stella's at horses, Carrie's working with Levi on science. When Levi's over here doing parkour or whatever, then Carrie's working with Stella on.
So she's got to be. She's in essence their teacher.
Yeah. You with this, as far as the state's concerned, the parent is the teacher. You're the one
taking on a lot with that.
You were fully in charge, yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, again, I love our school system. I love several teachers. Love them all. But at the end of the day, who cares more about your kids than you?
Yeah, it's just another method. It's just like Zoom for business meetings. That's really all it is.
Yeah. There you can work with the county. You can Zoom a lot of the classes. You can. We've everybody tries to get to a point where it's a one size fits all for everybody. and that's not always the case. Some people learn different. And I think that's where homeschool started, and then has kind of just blossomed into some different directions. But everybody, can learn different. Sometimes different the way they need to learn. So it works out good.
Our whole society's getting to where everything's not put in a certain box.
Yes, from politics to from beginning to end, I agree with that. It's I guess term PC or whatever, PC versus when you and I, or especially when I was a kid in high school or you before me, what was allowed then to what's allowed now is vastly different.
So you don't have any hobbies outside of that? For some reason I thought you were a hiker. Where did I get that?
I used to like to go hiking and mountain biking and a couple other things. My wife is not an outdoor person. So, I guess my hobby was my marriage.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem.
Boy, I got the coughing. Why is that? Is it now? They said that pollen is. What was it? Tomorrow it's supposed to be real bad, or was that today?
I'm really allergic to stuff, but I don't keep up with it as much as I should.
When you do you think it's like Bradford pears?
So I'm not sure. I know when I was 10, I was missing a quarter of the year, a third of the year just from being sick all the time. And so that finally went and got, the prick tests up both arms, shoulders, and back. And they basically told me I was allergic to planet Earth. Trees, grass, mold, mildew, dirt, whatever. So I get sick pretty good now after all the shots, still at least twice a year. Once in the spring when everything's blooming, once in the fall when everything's kind of falling and dying.
So in the middle, you're okay?
I'm in the middle, and in Christmas, I'm good.
What do you feel like when it gets to bothering you?
Sinus pressure, just
not runny, just stopped up.
Yeah, headaches.
Won't come loose.
Yeah, just headaches behind your eyes, tension in the back of your head.
You try Mucinex?
That and Tylenol, or what's the NyQuil? That's what does me decent. I can sleep good with it. And as long as I sleep good, then I'm usually pretty good the next day.
NyQuil will make you sleep.
Yeah, those green pills will put you out.
I do the little drink.
Okay, I try to avoid anything I got to taste. I'll take the pill.
What'll make you sleep? I think they took some of that stuff out of NyQuil though. I think didn't it used to have codeine in it? I think, and they took that out. Now it doesn't have it, but it still puts you to sleep.
This used to have cocaine in it.
I get to where I can't hardly drink a Coke anymore. They're so sweet.
My family, every February we typically give up sugar for the month.
All of February.
All of February. we give everybody Valentine's Day as a reprieve, and you kind of do whatever, kids getting candy or whatever. But so yeah, it's a bit sweet right now.
They say if you stay off something if you do something for 14 days, it becomes a habit.
I've always heard 21, but yeah, if you can get through the point of whether it's getting up and running, exercising, staying off something, getting to a certain place like the gym or church, or getting away from certain places. I think you do form mentally. You just get it into a habit.
Habits can be good and they can be bad. I think a lot of addictions are just simply a habit. Maybe more than the addiction.
No, I would think so. It's you almost feel like you got to do it in order to appease something in your brain that's what you normally do, and you do A in order to go on to B to go on to C. And
I have to leave the same building the same way I came in.
I don't have that one. I have to check all the locks at night. I have to check certain things. Otherwise, I'll have to get out of bed and go check it.
So I don't check any locks.
Yeah, I'm bad as far as security.
I don't think anything about security, but I do have to leave a building the same way. I mean, the same path. It's kind of crazy.
No, I think we all have
that's
a little,
more of a OCD thing.
I think we all have a little OCD or OCPD in us. I think there's those little nuances that make us us.
Which president was it that always had to turn right in the car and it took them for hours to get back to
I have no idea.
One president, he only would take right-hand turns in a car, and it took him for hours to get back to the White House.
That would take you a while. I'm trying to think. That would have to be what the Ford came out in the 1900s. So
It'd have to be after that.
yeah, it'd have to be in the last 100 years. So that's
Did
not
you go
too
to
many.
Bradley or Cleveland?
Cleveland? Loved it. Loved everything about it. Everybody deals with their, being a freshman to senior and you kind of growing up in the process. But I loved Cleveland. Loved my teachers. Mr. Burton, who's still there. Played soccer too. Was soccer captain
What
for a
year
while.
did you graduate?
94.
You're not that much younger than me.
How old are you?
I graduated in '84.
Okay, yeah.
So
I'm
10
40.
years.
I'm 40.
Did you say 94?
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah. No, I loved it. It was a good place to go. Cleveland was a great place to grow up, obviously. I stayed here. I left for 1 year thinking Cleveland was too small, and I went to UTK and didn't like it. Came back. A lot of my friends who had left to go to other colleges, they all came back. We all wound up living together, going to Lee, and
But how many years did you stay in Knoxville?
just one.
Just didn't like it?
Mm-mm. Not my thing. I think you think growing up in Cleveland where it's small and you just want to get out, and I think that's just part of, you're living in somebody else's house and you're following somebody else's rules, but then you get there and you get to a bigger location, you figure out like your ethics were here or whatever, and everybody's rules are vastly different than yours, and you decide you like the small town better. At least that's what happened to me.
When you came back here to Lee, did you get your own apartment or did you just move back home?
So first year I moved back home with my parents because they had just built a new house, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then I got into a club at Lee, their version of fraternities. They're not national ones, and moved in with some guys I was in the club with, but also graduated high school with.
Did you see UTK as that was just a little too maybe chaotic, I guess, or what?
Big. I will give Lee credit versus say anything negative about UT because I don't want to say anything negative, but you are there one of 30,000 students. Whereas when I went to Lee, as my professors knew my name, I went to eat lunch with one of them last week, and I graduated 20 plus years ago.
And I guess they had at that time, what, 1,500 students?
I think
maybe,
when I graduated, it was about 3,200 full-time students. So
that's still very small.
yeah, but Dr. Thompson, who's the head of the business department, I ate with him last week. Still go out and eat with him a good bit. Dr. Hasso, Mr. Burns, several professors that I had there still have conversations with. So I mean, I felt, and I'm not saying that's why I left I came back to Cleveland. I really did feel like they invested in me and wanted me to succeed, and that's why I want my kids to go there. It's why I've always loved Lee and still do, and still participate. And,
That's where mine
and a lot of that
goes.
stuff.
Mine goes to Lee.
I think it's a resource for our community that not a lot of people give as much credit to as it deserves. I mean, whether that's a big portion of why our population has grown so much, because
Right.
people get here and they stay here and they love it. But they become, especially
Tim Walters Day, that's the only negative they've had.
when I was at Lee, most of all my friends, we all waited tables at Jenkins or O'Charlie's or Applebee's. I mean, a lot of that food service industry, especially at that time, in mid or late 90s, was all serviced by Lee students.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, so to me, it was a great experience. I loved it. I couldn't thank my professors and Dr. Kahn, who was president at the time, enough for how obviously I met my wife there, so as well. So I think it's a great resource for our community.
You know, I'd already been building a while by the time you graduated. 10 years, I guess.
Yeah. So did you start building straight out of high school?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I went to UT for a year, came back, went to Lee for 3 years, went on an exchange trip for a semester, and then graduated. And then
What was your major?
business. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I knew that there's no reason for me to take education because I wasn't going to be a teacher. I knew there wasn't a reason for me to take theology because I definitely knew I wasn't going to be a pastor. It fit.
What else is there if it's not music, preaching,
medical?
or
Lee has all these things, all the disciplines you could want to learn, nursing school.
Yeah, nursing.
But a lot of my friends were doing business. I wound up doing that. My last 2 semesters, you could do an internship. I don't know if your son will wind up doing that with you. So I did my internship with my dad, and I figured, you know what? I'll get 3 hours of credit for my dad, get an A, make him buy me lunch. This will be great. And I wound up in that process working with a gentleman that I had graduated Lee already. And he opened the Zaxby's on 25th Street. And that was kind of my first big real estate deal.
Now let's go.
Mark Shepard.
Mark Shepard. Yeah, I built the building.
Okay, so that was one of my first big, or really one of my first deals. And so I decided, okay, well.
I was there. I mean, I was talking with them before they actually purchased the property.
So that was Stadfield's restaurant.
It was Stadfield's.
And had to tear it down, unfortunately, because Glenda was a super nice lady, super
remember.
good restaurant.
I don't think I tore it down. I think it was already tore down.
That part I don't remember.
So how did you know Mark?
Lee.
I didn't know he went to Lee.
Mm-hmm. So he's from South Georgia. His family is a logging company.
I met them all. I didn't know he graduated from Lee.
Mm-hmm. He and his wife, Christy, both.
I guess I did know that.
But that was one of the first ones I got involved in. And so I did that and decided I'd try a little bit more, that I liked commercial real estate.
But you were interning and then you didn't have a license? You were just working with him?
No, by that point I went ahead and got my license. And I got it my senior year. I think I graduated in the spring and got my license in March.
So you had already sort of gotten the bug?
Enough to go ahead and get my license and try it out, see. Dad suggested I just try it and see, and I really didn't have another idea of something else to do. But it worked out great. I got to work with him, and same as you wind up finding people you get to work with or under that have all this institutional knowledge about what you're in the business of, and you get to get it all fairly quickly. His best friend, at that age for me was Charlie Burns, who you knew.
Charlie.
So Dad and Charlie would eat lunch all the time, and Charlie's partner, Mike Sharp, who's now Judge Sharp. Mm-hmm. So I'd get to listen to the three of them kind of really, every day at lunch, give me an hour and a half lecture on proper way to do things and how business works and how Cleveland works.
Jim Sharp there some?
He would come and join us some. I regret one of their original partners was Robert Varnell, who I knew Robert very well as a kid. I never got to meet him in that setting, but his son, Robert, is now the city planner for Cleveland, who I've, again, really good relationship with. But it was great. I'm sure the same thing for you, getting to sit with some people when you were younger, like we were talking about earlier. You learn your education goes from here to here really quick.
It's unbelievable. When I think of all I've eaten at the Old Four, which was Stadfield's at the time before they tore it down for Zaxby's. And the guys I sat with were just really smart. I mean, really smart. Not just, some in business and some not, but just because somebody doesn't have money doesn't mean they're dumb.
No.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah, they understand something that a lot of times better than we do. They also understand the risks, and sometimes they're not willing to take the risk, but they certainly understand the benefits, and they can give you that information, and you can choose. Now, me at 46, about to be 47, there's a whole lot less risks I'll take now than me at 25 when I was not married and didn't have kids. So I'm sure they were in the same situation I am and you are now, where it's not the risk doesn't weigh the reward.
I've often thought, like some of those people that I used to eat breakfast with and stuff, I knew them when they were 50 or 60 and 70 and 80. And I think that's the way they were. But I've often thought maybe they weren't that person in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. Maybe I was just getting a window into them at that time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I would think so, because I'm definitely not the same real estate agent or person I was 10 years ago and 10 years before
And
that.
your advice might not be the same.
No, my knowledge base was definitely not the same. How I understood, investments in real estate or investments in anything else or just business and how relationships work. It wouldn't have been anything the same 7 years ago as it is today. It's vastly different. The world's different. It's constantly changing.
What else do we not know? You ever think about that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
What do we not know?
A good bit, unfortunately, I would say. I think Warren Buffett talks about, the best thing to invest in yourself is your skills and what you know. And that's where you need to put your time and your energy and your money, is improving that skill. Because if you've got a skill that's in demand, inflation won't take that away from you. Bankruptcy won't take that away from you. That skill should usually always be in demand. So if you have skills, or you should use your money and time to develop the skills that you have. So no matter what happens, you're good to go. And I believe in that. So I'm not a jack of all trades. I don't try to learn everything.
What do you think's your biggest skill?
To me, it's probably instilled in for me. My dad is really just my ethics combined with customer service. I don't view myself as a salesperson. If I have to take you in a house and sell you on that house and try to convince you why the house is right for you, you're going to be unhappy. The realtor organization now, and I don't know where they got their statistics, that last 2 years that we went through, where everybody was buying houses sight unseen, paying cash, getting rid of home inspections, whatever, I think it's as high as 55% of those people who bought their house in the last 2 years now have buyer's remorse. But they were probably pressured and not necessarily it's always on the agent, but just the situation got them pressured. They kept writing 6, 7, 8 offers before they finally got one. So they were put in an envious position. But based on that, I've never tried to go in there and sell anybody on something. I'm going to give you as much information as I can give you. I'm going to be as honest and ethical about the information I give you as I can be, that I know I can be. I'm going to get you in and out of every house that would fit you. Except sell houses now. We talked about commercial, whether it's commercial or house. I'm going to help you make the best decision that you can make for you and answer every question you have. But if I have to sell you on it, you're going to be unhappy. So that's where I try to view myself as, that's my biggest asset, is those two things combined, that I'm going to treat you honestly and ethically, but I'm going to do the best job for you I can for you to make your best decision.
In other words, you see it more as making the property available and letting people have a sense that the information you're giving them is correct.
Yeah.
And that's because selling, I always had a problem with selling real estate. It's almost like you're a carnival worker.
Yeah.
Step right up here, throw the 3 basketballs or something. Because you're really not going to convince. And I'm not sure if you really can even convince somebody to buy something that they don't want to. If you do, I don't know if they'll make it to the closing as long as it takes nowadays.
Yeah, and then you're speaking out of turn. You're saying things that you don't know are 100% correct just to get, and that's where I can't stand that. I don't want anybody to treat me that way.
Yeah, no.
I'm never going to treat anybody that way. I don't care if we get down to the end and they just decide, hey, I can't do this. I'm like, okay, well, here's your options. I'm going to help you out the best way you can to get out of this situation. I'm not going to be mad at you. If you decide this is not the right house for you, then it's not. I'm not going to be somebody who's going to browbeat you into buying something that you don't want, even if it's the last day.
It ain't worth it,
No.
is it? It's not worth it.
My dad had worked too hard, and the people who worked with him for too long to have Bender's reputation and for us to last as long as we have. I mean, we've been in business for 54 years. For me to turn around and ruin it that quickly, it's just not, it's not, there's no commission, there's no amount of money worth ruin your reputation. And maybe young people don't understand that. Maybe that's what we're talking about. Maybe you and I at 25 would not have understood that, but me at 46, almost 47, and you 10 years older than that, we definitively know that now.
Sure. You know, when I used to work at Cook's Food Store, I was a bag boy. And the guy that was over me was Robert Bradney. He's over there. You know, he was a really good guy. He still is, I'm sure. I just don't see him very often.
He runs our office. He is the general manager of the office and of the property management department. And again, that's where we try to take care of everybody that we can as honestly and ethically as we can and are allowed. I know, we'll have past tenants get on Google reviews or whatever and say that, maybe we weren't the best landlords they loved, but they're probably the tenant who didn't pay the rent on time.
Well, you always have that.
Yeah.
You always have that. And they may even have the wrong location, the wrong person. You can't. No, I don't think anybody even reads that anymore, really. I don't read it.
Yeah. I typically don't. I read about the product in general.
You know, two people I always think of that are just top-notch and really, really good, dependable, is Dwayne Williams over at WCLE and Robert Bradney. Those are two people that if they decided to, everybody would be working for them.
I think so. I love Dwayne. I've known Dwayne for a long time, even back to when he worked for Toby and running at the
I remember when he ran the bowling alley in Athens. That's how far I go back with it.
So I've always known him since he's been in Cleveland. But Robert has he had many different jobs and different lives, working at Cook's for the Cook's family because he worked there as a kid. Came back after he went to MTSU. He transitioned from working at the stores to working at Panera Bread.
I don't remember that.
So when the Cooks started or got the franchise here locally for East Tennessee for Panera Bread, he helped. I think he did advertising for the Cooks for the stores, and then he kind of transitioned into helping do the advertising for the openings of Panera Breads as they opened them. And then that's when they adopted their daughter. And about that time is when he felt like I didn't need to be moving around quite as much as he was. He needed to kind of be more central. So it worked out well. At the same time, we needed a manager to come in and take over, and worked out well.
Did you know him prior?
Yes, because he was already licensed real estate agent at Bender. So it worked out. Perfect timing for all involved. But he's hugely involved in Relay for Life because he's a cancer survivor. He's hugely involved in Cherish Jubilee and a lot of the things, the Story Guild, as far as the stories they tell downtown around Halloween. I'm forgetting the name of the event.
Yeah, I never can think of that.
And then he's hugely involved in the local and state real estate associations.
I'm sure,
so, yeah.
That's right down his alley.
It is. He does an exceptional job.
Do you think that Cleveland's going to move that way, north? You think it's going to go north and south, or north-south? And what do you think?
I think it depends on the landowners. The Hardwick Farm is the biggest property to the north of us. Depending on how that family wants to develop that property.
It seems to me like it's time.
I don't really know too many of the members of the family anymore, so it really comes down to, I know they had previously had a plan on how it would be developed. I don't know if those family members are still in charge. If that were to develop, then I would definitely say we keep going north. Going west, we've kind of hit Georgetown, and you've got water problems, flood problems, the creeks.
How far
and everything
will that
else.
go out? Maybe to Eureka Road? Busy to there, or maybe not quite to there?
I think it would follow the widening of Georgetown Road. It would be my thought. It would go out that way. Depending, at the end of the day, the city always develops where sewer is. So wherever Cleveland Utilities can or decides to run sewer, I think that's the way it's going to be developed, because then you can get your density way smaller or way more, and you can have lots way smaller for housing developments, commercial, whatever. So I think that's why, Mouse Creek always developed the way it did, because that's the way the sewer goes out. You wonder why Mouse Creek's not that bad, but it is a windy road, goes up and down, left and right. You could wonder why that road developed versus other ones. Well, they followed the sewer. So whenever Cleveland Utilities decides that they are going to have to add another sewer plant, and because they add another sewer plant, where that sewer is going to go, that's the way ultimately I think you'll have it developed, whether that's down Dalton Pike, whether
So you don't think the same sewer, of course,
I would assume we have to be hitting capacity for something built in 1974.
you would think, or they didn't build it big enough then, right?
Well, I mean, even
Where's the sewer plant? There at the soccer fields? Is that it, or is it
I think it's what's at the end of the
Hiawassee?
I think it's at the end of the airport, right? The water
I
treatment
get
plant.
all that well, I get all that confused. I thought it was way past Oland and behind Bacher. That was sort of the end of the line.
You probably are more correct than me. I would say so, but as they can increase capacity, I mean, you look at Hamilton County, who's currently under a sewer moratorium in their development, and so unless it's changed, but my understanding it was, yes, you can build a house here, you can do whatever you want. Right now, though, you're going to have to put it on a septic tank, but when we bring sewer to your area, you have to hook up to it. Cleveland's not there yet, but I think wherever they decide that we can continue to add sewer, that they can service it, that's the way we'll go, more than likely. Whether that's down Dalton Pike, out 64 Highway, going up North Lee Highway, whether it's going up Georgetown Road. And I mean, we've got a great utility district. We have a great utility president, Tim Henderson. I think does his job extremely well. I know this coming up this week, they have the meeting on them adding fiber optics to their ability to sell, along with television, or not television service, telephone service. I think will be great for the city. I know that some people might, again, be indifferent about it or think it's a bad idea for the utility company to get into it. I think for us as consumers, it's always great to have more options. Right now, our two options are two very large telecom communications companies, which aren't located here. So to have an option that is located here and headquartered out of here, I think is always good.
Which is what, Spectrum and
AT&T.
AT&T.
So if you can turn around and add Cleveland Utilities, even if you don't plan on using it, it's probably going to help your bill.
Well, they've already got the lines run.
They've got.
In other words, wherever you can get
Cleveland Utility Service, you'll have fiber optic.
I developed a piece of property on Mouse Creek Road, and it did not have fiber optics. And few people wanted to buy houses in there, but they wanted to make sure that it had high-speed internet. And I couldn't even hardly get the answer. from the people, from Spectrum?
High-speed internet at this point, where 20 years ago, internet was it was not a necessity. Maybe it's a luxury.
Yeah.
People kind of use it. It's almost a necessity now. I mean, more necessity. It's more necessary than your home phone.
It's more of a utility.
Yeah.
It's more of a utility than a pleasure type thing. You got to have it. You can't do anything if you don't have internet.
Well, you look at during COVID, which hopefully we never go back to anything close to that, but you have so many people needing that for school, for work, for all these things. I mean, you have to have it. So to have more options to get it, I cannot see that's a bad thing.
I couldn't even renew my contractor's license till I had it logged in and, sent it through, scanned it and sent it in. And used to, I would mail it or drive it up there. And I couldn't figure out for sure if I was going to get it if I just mailed it, because it was going to the internet was a whole different place than where I used to send it. So,
Yeah.
And incidentally, it didn't get there. Even through sending it online, I ended up driving it up there the day of. I almost didn't have a license, but anyway, yeah, if they have, so in other words, in Bradley, wherever you've got a phone, everybody in Bradley County would be able to get on the internet.
No, well, yes. So depending on who your service provider. Now, Cleveland Utilities will just be in Cleveland Utilities map. So if you get, to my understanding, if you're getting electrical service from Cleveland Utilities, then you would be able to get.
Oh, in other
their
words, if
fiber.
it's volunteer electric, I wouldn't.
Yeah, you would.
Oh, I see.
But now VEC has their own internet service that they've been able to expand, and they're putting fiber
What's it
throughout the
called?
county. I think they're a reseller for somebody else. I don't remember, but at least the way it's been explained to me, if you're in the county and you want to look it up, you just go to, I think, VEC's website, and they have a section somewhere on there that talks about county area internet. You go in and put in your address, say, I want to have it. And then when they get enough people in a track, whatever the track is, they can go to the state government, and the state government gives them a grant.
Oh.
They use that grant money to go run the fiber optic to your area. We're between VEC and Cleveland Utilities being able to provide you a service from a local provider. Again, nothing against Spectrum or AT&T. I just think that's good for competition. If you want to stay with AT&T, which is what I have at my house, then stay with AT&T. I just don't see it as a negative to add an option.
Everything's so much different dealing with everybody now. I used to go to Cleveland Utilities and ask a question. Now you got to call and go through 5 people and the operator and send stuff online. It's just hard for people. And I'm not talking negative on them. That's just the way everything is now.
Yeah, I think everything has their barriers to be able to get an answer. Most companies kind of build up their mail tree to have that way.
I would rather pay somebody $20 an hour to answer the phone and say, hello, can I help you? And have them send it rather than...
I think portions of that are true. If you're a local contractor...
Of course, how they get to all the calls.
If you're a local contractor or local employer, I think you can choose to do that. It's your choice. When you get into a corporation that's that size, their main beholding is not to their customers, it's to their stockholders. Well, for their stockholders, they have to return the biggest profit. Well, the way to return the biggest profit is to cut costs wherever you can, and that can mean moving your phone answering service overseas. It can mean locking it down to one location in the continental U.S. that answers everybody's phone calls, to where you're waiting for 20, 30 minutes to get an answer.
It's definitely more efficient.
It can be more efficient. It's a money savings, in my opinion, for them, which again, their main customer is their stockholder, not their customer buying the service. Whereas for me and you, we need to be top of mind for customer service. So we'll have that person on site. At least that's my opinion.
On the courthouse square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call.
If they could ever come up with another way to do it, in future years, they could look back and say, you mean there was a pipe connected to every house and it ran on a slope all the way to the, so why didn't y'all just do this? And I don't know what that is.
I think if you could make septic tanks more foolproof.
Well, these RV parks, they're able to store it. I mean, couldn't you just have somebody come by and pump out your tank every so often and not have all these pipes connected everywhere?
I think obviously the RV parks do, especially in locations where it doesn't perk. We've had real estate that's had the pump and haul every couple, 3 or 4 days.
Right, yeah.
You certainly can do that. What happens, it snows and you can't come pump and haul? What happens if...
or somebody can't afford or doesn't...
Yeah, can't pay you to come get it. So
I wonder if they'll ever have some kind of a treatment system on site for individual houses.
Probably. I think if the U.S. follows trend with all the news to where everybody becomes even more self-sufficient on their own footprint, and a mix of solar panels or some type of wind generation on your own house, people might go back to some type of internal well system, septic system. So I think there's the chance that more people's houses become more carbon neutral individually. It would be interesting to see, because then you really could go anywhere you want to go.
It really would. It would change the dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, and then you're talking about all these subdivisions, especially, newer subdivisions, to maximize the subdivision to get as many houses as you can in there. The lots tend to be really small. In that situation where you could go anywhere in any county you wanted to, then you could, houses could tend to spread out.
Of course, how would you get water? That would be
you'd have to do a well again. Now, there actually are solar panels that you can put on your house that generate water. And so they go up, the sun turns whatever's in the solar panel into water, it goes into a connection.
Yeah, and they're taking... I read, I don't know if it's true, that they had come up with a way they could extract moisture from sand somehow or another. Some guy in Arizona...
They got a lot of sand.
There was some way that they were doing. I can't remember what that was, but something will come along. Something can come along and change everything dramatically.
Well, I mean, we talked about the internet. I mean, how that came along, how that changed magazine and newspapers. That used to be the thing, and now...
And that's been how long ago?
Not that, like 10, 20 years ago, and now...
Well, would it really be 20 years ago? Would it be?
So the internet was first coming along as far as the general public when I was in college, which was about 20 years ago. That's when AOL was sending you discs in the mail for you to log on and create an account.
Yeah, and I didn't even get on board then.
But now...
Yeah, I remember that. That was what... So, okay, so that was 94.
Yeah. 94, 95-ish, and now we're...
When did, and AOL kind of went, some people still have an AOL address.
Yeah, it kind of dates.
I tell you, I didn't even have an AOL address, I don't think. I had a .net, bellsouth.net.
Yeah. So that's actually 30 years ago, but if you take from...
All right, take from then to when? To now.
Yeah, or even 7, 8, 9 years ago when newspapers really started to go down. Everybody used to pick up the home magazines, go to a restaurant. That's how you got it out. Well, now,
that's what you did when you went to Gondolier. You got that magazine.
Or Jenkins or wherever. Yeah. But now it's really not in print very much. And it's just because the speed everybody wants the information. I can take a listing at 9 o'clock and have an internet lead or an internet ad going 30 minutes later. that touches everyone in the world.
You can about have it closed by the time that magazine
Thing
got
came
printed.
out. Well, especially the last 18 months, you would have it closed before that
Do you
magazine
remember the
came out.
MLS?
Oh yeah, it's still kicking and going.
I remember when everybody would get their copy of the MLS.
You get the big book, big blue book once a month, and the little
Make
3
notes.
red books
Yeah.
as the updates, and then the new book once a month or once a quarter.
They would come out in light green and light pink. Remember that? The books were kind of alternating colors.
So that was
And the thickness would say, oh, it's a buyer's market. Oh, it's a seller's market.
it. About the time I started in 98, 99 is when we were switching to a database version of the MLS. So you'd get a program, you download on a computer, and you get, they put out a new CD or new floppy disk every week, and you have to go to the association, go get it, come back to your office, reload it, and then take it back. But it's still, you were getting the information quicker than you were from the book. But now, if you call me and say, hey, Brian, I want to buy a house, I want this, and I want in one of these 3 neighborhoods, and I go in, I set up a search for an MLS system, you'll get emailed within about 15 seconds of it hitting the MLS. Once that other real estate agent hits save, and it all goes up to the cloud, and in about 15 seconds, there'll be an email that shows up in your inbox or a text that goes to your phone. So it's just all about the demand of information, how quick it can go out, how quick you receive it. And that's why, a lot of your print stuff has not gone away, but slowed down. It's had to change what it is. It's not so much the speed of the news that it's getting. It's, that becomes more interest articles. You've got Steve down the street with his radio station. He can get on there at any point and tell you breaking news. He's got, multiple different radio stations, and he's got the mixed TV now. So you can watch it on Facebook. You can watch it on, it's how you receive your information and almost how quickly it gets to you. So I think that's why a lot of things changed with the internet. It's just because it can deliver it to you so quickly and such a wide berth. It's not just who has the paper or who's paying for it or who's getting delivered to their house and who's going to read it that night. You can get a text on your phone and see the latest news in 2 seconds. You can, whether it's tornado warnings or school closings or whatever the news is.
Were phone booths around when you remember?
Barely, but yeah.
Just barely?
Yeah, they were. I don't remember when the last one got taken out of Cleveland, but
You ever use a phone booth?
Yes, specifically the exchange trip I talked about, I went on, that was to England, and cell phones were really not around then. So the only way to kind of check in with my parents was to go outside the hotel, go down, find the phone booth, take out the calling card they gave me from AT&T or Bell South, and put in the 15-digit number to be able to try to call them. I remember.
Who would have predicted that difference in 1995 or 3? Who would have predicted?
I can't, yeah, but even cell phones, most people got around to carrying them, but what was the big impetus of what changed everything was the smartphone. That's, when the first iPhone came out, then the world, vastly went different. You went from carrying around a little thing that had nothing else to do but answer the phone.
We thought that was the end of it, didn't we? That was.
But then you turn around and now you're carrying a computer in your phone, in your pocket, that's way more powerful than anything I wrote anything on in college. It's vastly better.
It makes you wonder what you could speculate is coming next. And if we said, well, nothing, then we're stupid.
Yeah, we're idiots.
So we have to think there's something. So we can really, if we thought about it, we could see it, because there would be rumors right now. Because in 90 and 91, and there were rumors of car phones.
Yeah.
There's some on TV and
big bags
and just stuff like that. So whatever's happening now that's way out there, but it is real, it's probably going to be common.
Well, I mean, and your home phone was that was a necessity. Everybody had their home phone. You remembered all your friends' home phone numbers. Now
Oh, yeah,
nobody
remember
has a
everybody.
home phone. I haven't had one, and I don't know how
I
long.
don't even know. I've got your phone number in my thing, but it's just Brian.
Yeah.
It's not a number. I don't even
Yeah.
know your number.
Yeah,
I have no
there's-
clue.
I probably know 7 numbers in my head, and that's about it. Everything else is just
Do you remember your home phone number growing up? Mm-hmm. What was it?
476-4296. They don't have it anymore, so good thing I'm giving it out. They don't have it anymore, but
My mother still has the same phone number.
my parents would if they wasn't the fact they just moved. They didn't take it with them. They didn't see the need because nobody ever calls them on it. But yeah.
Isn't it some? And I just remember it as 5 numbers.
Oh,
Because everybody that you
Was
talk to
4-7.
knows it's 4-7.
Yeah. Now what Cleveland has 339, 476, 472, 478.
Oh, I've got some
479.
people. It seems like I'm getting 913s now, and I don't even know where that's from.
So we picked up a new area code.
But I would like to talk to somebody that is a real forward-thinking, way out there person, because I bet they'd be pretty well on it.
Have you ever watched any of the? If you watch TED Talks, they're pretty interesting. You can watch those on YouTube. But listen to anything from Elon Musk. Self-driving cars, AI, the rockets, everything he does is. But if you look back when he said he wanted to start Tesla and electric cars, everybody thought he was an idiot. Well, now you look at it and that's mainstream. So then you look at everything else he's talking about, and everybody says an idiot. Well, probably 20 years from now, everything he's talking about will be mainstream.
I believe that we'll have robots that walk around in our house that look like people.
Oh, he's making them now.
Have you seen those people online that are robots, and it'd be hard to tell that it wasn't a person.
Oh,
Some of those you'd about have to touch them or cut them open to see if they bled.
I don't know if I've seen the same ones you have now. Like Boston Dynamic has one. I think they use it for bomb stuff every now and then. But Tesla's made a couple. They've made it so much so that they can't lift more than 50 pounds because they don't want to ever have anybody feel threatened that the robot would be able to hurt the person, or that the person wouldn't be able to take the robot down, pull its arms off, whatever, so it couldn't hurt you. But I've seen what they're doing, and he talks about mostly that the robots would go into jobs that are unsafe or not super safe for people, that are repetitive, that usually would cause problems for humans, for like tunnel carpal syndrome or bad knees or whatever. That's what those robots mostly would go towards taking over the jobs of. But we'll see.
Now, but it's really just Siri.
Yeah.
And Google
And a
mixed
robot.
And a robot. That's all it is.
And if you've, I like to watch things on YouTube and learn a little bit when I can. They go over. I watched one YouTube thing that was talked about Tesla and all the things that the Tesla's cars have to learn in order to be self-driving.
God, can you imagine?
The competitive or just comprehensive, like all the calculations they have to go through to decide what to do. And then when one makes a mistake, they load it up. All the new cars learn from the mistake, and then they go on. And then as more mistakes get loaded up, because more people buy more cars, that they learn from that mistake, take it out, and that mistake won't be made again. So it's just all
Like
these
a collective
brain between all the cars that Tesla's ever made. And they'll continue to do that. They'll get to the point where they don't make mistakes, or it's so minute a percentage and so random a situation that it comes up. But they'll take that knowledge, which is the artificial intelligence or the AI, and they're taking that knowledge and they're putting it in a walking, talking tin can.
So if we think about that real far out, what would we come up with? Because we could become rich.
Well, we could. He talks about a society to where most of those again, repetitive jobs that could be dangerous for people will no longer be needed to be serviced by people, and that those people would be able to be redirected into something else that would be more forward thinking, more helpful.
Which would be what? I don't know what it would be.
Yeah, just adding more human brain power to the collective, I guess, and pushing us. But I mean, obviously, he sees a moon base, and then he sees us on Mars and us in other places. So
Yeah, but in 1994,
nobody would have seen any.
nobody would have seen even carrying around cell phones like this. So it's not that far out. If we had 2 lifetimes to live, we could really be rich.
It would be interesting, wouldn't it?
I'd like to tell somebody to build that house for them.
If you knew tomorrow you were going to die, or at least to me, I would like to go back and look at what Cleveland looked like in 1900. Just look around for just a little bit. See what everybody was doing, how they were dressed, how they functioned, what
Have you
stuff
ever seen
cost.
those 4Ks online where they say beach in 1912 and they'll have it in color?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's the real color or if they're
No,
obviously
it's
they're
digital.
just speculating.
Yeah, they're digitizing, but
But wouldn't they be pretty close?
yeah, I mean they're probably going to that same general beach, figuring out what the general colors are around it, trying to apply it, because it's the computer's judging the different levels of gray.
Yeah, it would
Yeah.
have to be.
Yeah, but go back in time, look and see what people were living like 100 years ago, and then go forward in time 100 years just to see what they're going to live like. That would be so interesting.
Yeah.
I've often walk around downtown or see the books. Paul, I'm forgetting Paul's last name. He works Edward Jones. Hickman. He does the Cleveland history.
Yeah.
I love looking at those pictures and just always wonder, like, man, what would have life been like in Cleveland just to see it for a day, to walk around the old courthouse, to walk around the old downtown. He had some pictures
Dirt roads,
Yeah, he has some pictures of the
wagons in front of the courthouse and stuff.
but then go forward 100 years and see what we're all looking like. It would be interesting. I wish we could leave. That goes back to you saying 2 lifetimes. I wish we could live 2 lifetimes just to kind of see what the past was and see what the future is going to look like and be able to experience it versus just looking at pictures.
I believe that robots and AI is already here.
Oh, yeah.
And in the next 2 years is going to be vastly different.
Well, man, there's robots. They're already built.
Yeah,
AI. You're
yeah.
walking around with AI.
They're
on
just
your
going to
phone.
have personal, like they had personal computers, they're going to make personal robots. But what I think is going to be the biggest advancement is is the medical field, as far as
I hope so.
solving a lot of, like these
Cancer. That's the big
peptides
one.
and RNA vaccines. I think those RNA things are going to prove to be something that's helpful in the future.
I hope they can take. My brother is a PhD mathematician, extremely smart.
Boy, PhD mathematician.
But he wrote a book when he was at UTK with one of his professors. But it was how to take very high math and use it to, like you talk about trials, and they go through all these patients and they take trials and take this version of the drug or this version of the drug or the placebo. They figured out how to with math, calculus, statistics, whatever, figure out how to really drum that down and figure out your what your result's going to be pretty accurately by taking such a smaller base of people. So if you were to able to take that along with all the computing power we have now, AI and everything, and really be able to figure out how to get rid of cancer being the worst. We've had so many kids in our area, some of which I've known their parents who've gotten sick, have cancer, have passed away from cancer, just to get rid of that one disease. But we talk about living multiple lifetimes. I mean, it's going to get to the point where our lifespan has gotten. I mean, that's why there's so many people more in Cleveland and other areas, is people just don't die as early as they did. They live longer. They've had more kids. That's why our U.S. population keeps growing. I would love for the advancements in medicine to be able to take out a lot of that stuff. They talk about, being able to grow your new organs if you're having liver failure or whatever in a petri dish, and you're going to have no rejection because it's your cells that are using to grow it. You don't have
you
to
wouldn't
stay
have
on.
to take all those pills or
Yeah.
medicines.
So I mean, again, if you get liver cancer, well, Dee will
Make
come
you
in on
another one.
Thursday. We're going to take these cells out, and then come in the next Thursday. We'll put your new liver in, and then you just keep on.
Yeah, or
keep on rolling.
instead of taking your blood and storing it in case you have a car wreck, let's say, I'm gonna go ahead and have me a liver made in case I need one. I believe all of that. See, when we hear about that stuff now, it's just kind of a maybe a joke, but I think those things come.
Oh,
to
they're working on them.
Have you seen some of these? Botox and facelifts, and man, it makes people look a lot better. And I know this guy that got a hair transplant. I've been watching him. He got it like a year ago or maybe 10 months ago. And I mean to tell you, it's really incredible. I mean, it looks really good. I'm watching him to see how it does, but I mean, it's unbelievable.
See, I kind of think that's why God lets our eyesight go down when we get older, so we don't see how bad we look.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be too worried about it. I need to get new glasses now, but yes, it's amazing. I know a lot of people who have gone and had those type of procedures, and if that's what they wanted to do, I'm glad they did it. For themselves, but I don't pay enough attention to notice who really has them and doesn't have them.
Let me ask you this: do you think that I think that the next rage in real estate is going to be large tracts in rural areas? I mean, I don't mean 50 acres. I mean 400 acres, 800 acres. I mean way out, like Delano and Etowah.
I know there has been a lot of money who have come from other areas and bought up larger tracts of land. I know there are new real estate companies that don't take listings that are less than 50, 60 acres. So it's very well likely. At the same time, though, and I know there's certain generations younger than both of us, they don't want to deal with the yard at all. So they're buying townhomes just because they don't want to maintenance anything. So who knows where I think you might have a divergence of certain people just buy a house for utility, and then certain people buy land for the use of it.
I think that in real estate, and of course I know that much about it, but what I've noticed is whenever you see what everybody's starting to do, it's too late to get into it. That by the time you get into it, you're just catching the tail end at best. And so the thing to do is to really look a little more forward because nobody's in it yet. I mean, like I say, if you wanted to go on Georgetown Road and speculate on property, well, you can't do it now. It's too expensive. You can't, I guess you could do it in Charleston, maybe, if that's where it's going, or downtown,
or out towards Benton. I think you could speculate and hold, but even in Benton, the price of land has gotten pretty high.
Benton's expensive. Yeah. Polk County and over by Webb Store. Try to buy something near Webb Store.
You try to buy anything on this side of Parksville Lake, even if it's in Polk County. That used to be really cheap. People say, I want 15, 20 acres, but I don't want to spend more than $3,000, $4,000 an acre. I'm like, well, we drive until you qualify.
Yeah.
We're going to, and that used to hold. You could drive out towards Polk County. Eventually you'd hit where 3,000 an acre was justifiable, but you can't do that anymore.
You can't do it now.
Everywhere is expensive.
If you want to go to where you can buy some land at large tracts that's real affordable, it takes too long to get there.
You're talking the closest here.
45 minutes.
You're going Turtletown north or Decatur east. You're somewhere out in that general range, close to the mountains. Otherwise, I don't.
Which is not a bad place to be.
No, it's not. It's a good place to go hide.
Yeah.
But yeah, the good thing is for most people who owned a house in the last couple of years, they all gained about 30% equity.
Yeah.
And so they've got some options of what they want to do in the future. I don't think we're not going to have a real estate crash. They have the option to do a lot of what they want. Good, bad, or indifferent of COVID, whether you agree with what the government did or not, a lot of people got really cheap rates and they got a lot of money handed to them for free. And the combo of the two meant that people's house that was worth $200,000 is now worth $330,000, and they have a 3% loan on it, that their payment is basically zero interest, and they're good. They're not going to lose it. It's not going to go anywhere. And I don't see house prices going down because we've been behind wherever the government says the mark is that we should be building houses for statistically to fit the number of people that are coming on the market to purchase a home. And since people are going off the market less because people are living longer, since the crash of 2007, 8, 9, when people used to be able to be an engineer or postmaster in the morning and be a contractor in the afternoon, all those people went away. Banks wouldn't lend them money. It's too risky. Well, until recently, you have companies who can come in and build a lot of homes at one time. So we've been behind on the number of houses needing to be built for 15 years, as far as we're concerned, and in the nation. And it's going to take a long time of a lot of building before we ever get caught back up to the amount of supply that we need to be. And then you want to look back during the house craze of 2021 and 22, a normal market, or what Association of Realtors would call a balanced market, is 6 months supply. So for the amount of houses that are going on the market and the amount of houses that are getting purchased, that if no new houses got put on the market at the rate they're being purchased out, that supply would run out in 6 months. So however you do the math, but if it's 3 a month and that's 18, you need 18 worth of that product to last. Well, during the housing in 21, 22, we had a lot of houses that came on the market. They went off as fast as they came on. And normally, whereas our association would have ran for Bradley County, 250, 300 homes, 600 homes in the whole association, we were running 22, 23 total, because they'd go off the market as fast as they came on. As that starts to slow down, we're up, but maybe we're at 200 for the association versus what we used to be. We're still behind, as far as we still don't have 6 months of inventory that's there for buyers to look at and purchase. So it's going to be a long time before we ever get caught up. So because of that, I don't think we're going into a housing crash anytime soon. If somebody's sitting there like, well, we'll wait until the rates go back down, they should have never been down to 3 to begin with. I don't think they're ever going to go back down to 3. If they're waiting for prices to go down, they're not going to go down. Has your lumber costs and anything else gone down?
No, we're just getting used to it.
Yeah, so it's not going to go down. It is the way. This is the new. If you want to call it normal, we're in the new normal. It ain't going back.
Well, the thing about real estate is I look at it as a moving train. It's always consistently going up. Mm-hmm. Some not as much, some down, but it's consistently going up all the time. So if you can, get on the train.
Yeah.
At whatever stop, whether the rate, because I've never seen it when rates were low, lumbers were low, buyers were up. There's never those scenarios. It's all 6 and 1/2. Either the lumber's up, labor's up, interest rates up, or the banks aren't loaning, or something. Just get on the bus and get off when you want, get off later.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But you can't get off if you didn't get on.
No. And given what our rental rates have gone up to here, I mean, there for a long time, you could buy a house and your payment was going to be less than the rent rates were. And then our houses went up, and so then it costs more to own, but now the rent's gone up kind of with it. So you can, what you're paying $1,200-$1,300 a month, you take that $1,200 or $1,300 and go to Bank of Cleveland, Southern Heritage, United Community, whoever, and qualify for a loan. You'd be surprised what you get, even at 6.5% interest rate. You're going to be fine. You're going to be better off.
When I first started building, if you said you could get interest at anything less than 8%, they would have just thought that was the best thing in the world. So I'm used to people saying 8.5. To me, that was the normal. Yeah. This new generation come up, 3.5's normal to them, and that's really not the normal. My old friend Jim Elmore, one of the best businessmen I knew and investors. He said, Dee, when you buy a piece of property, make sure it works borrowing 8%. And I said, why, Jim? Interest is, at that time, it was 10.
Yeah.
And he said, because you're going to average 8%. Over the 20 years, you're going to average 8%. So make sure it works on 8%. And he said, I said, well, what if I just pay it off? And he said, well, your money's costing you 8% no matter where it's at. And it takes a little bit to get to understanding that, but you can either pay it off and not pay 8%, but now you're not making 8%.
Yeah.
So money doesn't know where it's at. It's just costing what it costs. Better put it in real estate and get on the train.
Well, typically real estate always goes up. Stocks don't always go up. They do crash, so you can lose a lot. So good thing with, vacant land or a rental home or anything else, it will keep getting, especially rental homes, tenants will keep paying your rent every month, and even if it goes into a downturn, it will swing back up and its value will go right back to where it was, and then it will go past it. So I've mentioned Warren Buffett a couple times, but he did, he's the smartest investor of our lifetime. His biggest thing is just don't invest in anything you don't understand. And I don't understand Bitcoin. I don't understand NTFs. I don't understand a lot of that stuff, but I understand collecting rent. I understand, managing a property. So that's typically what I'm going to stick with.
We can get our arms around that, can't we?
Yeah. And I like something physical. I like to be able to drive by and check it. And really, in that situation, your destiny's in your own hand. It's going to do as well as you manage it, not as well as some CEO and some tower.
It's still going to do okay, even if you don't manage it completely. It'll forgive you of a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, and you can always come back and fix it.
You can fix it. It just takes a long weekend.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I think that you have got a great opportunity with your dad. By the way, my grandfather built the building for T.L. Lowry.
Oh, that's now our office.
That's now your office.
I've got some pictures of us tearing that. It was a tri-level home, and
for T.L. Lowry.
And then we added.
Jim Burris built that. Elijah Burris.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. I got some pictures I can show you then. That's where it's ripped apart, where we're adding on the front and the back. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's been a great location. The only negative about it anymore is Thursday and Friday around 5 o'clock. It's a little bit difficult to get out of my parking lot.
One thing I've noticed about the real estate business is, or the real estate sales and real estate companies, is used to it was this company, that company, or that company. And nowadays and I don't know why this is, but it's like this team inside this company, and it's just so confusing. People don't, in my mind, y'all are doing something that's really good. You're staying with a branded name, a trusted name. And it doesn't seem like, you know what I'm saying? These teams inside of teams inside of real estate? I don't understand that.
So it's basically a company within inside a company, and it has become pretty popular. It's not something I've chosen to done for myself. There is a team within Bender Realty. That's how they want to operate. We support them just as much as we support individual agents. We try to do our best to help them do their best. I mean, my opinion from our office standpoint is my job is to support the staff however they need to be supported to be able to support the agents. If those agents are helping their customers and helping those customers realize their dreams by home ownership, moving here and there, wherever they need to, those customers are happy, then the agents are going to accomplish their goals. They're going to financially for their family, which is going to help the office accomplish its goals by keeping everybody employed, pay them what they need to. I've always looked at the office function to function that way, not where I need to cut every corner, count every penny or every dime. And that's how we'll always be. And that's basically the way my dad beat it into me, so that's the way I'll keep doing it.
One of the first times that I met your dad, I'll tell you, the first day I met him, I guess I was 23, and I'd built this house with another guy, and we couldn't sell it. And finally got a buyer. And Bender had it listed. I forget which agent. I guess it was probably Jim. And couldn't sell it. Finally got a buyer. And I was so green. I didn't know nothing. So I went with this guy. He said, Jim, he said, we've got a buyer. And we can't pay you a commission. He said, well, I understand. That's okay. I forgot that.
Well, again, it's if he would have raked you over the coals to try to get that commission, that might have put you out of business. You never would have had a good relationship with him. And at least in that situation, he was forward thinking, like, you know what, we'll make it up on the next one. And y'all have had a great relationship. And again, we refer a lot of people to you to build office buildings and other type properties. So I just don't, I've never been one to believe to burn a bridge. We'll figure it out.
It's what do they call that? Not reciprocation, but reciprocity.
Okay. Yeah.
Reciprocity.
Yeah, I mean, whether you call it what comes around goes around, or if it's a.
I think that's the Southern time.
Yeah. Because Dad left JCPenney's, and JCPenney's original store name was the Golden Rule Store. And then when they renamed it JCPenney's I'm sure for marketing purposes, they always kept the Golden Rule as the main rule in JCPenney's. And we're talking about 1970s. Dad brought that over to the office. So I've got some pictures of the old Golden Rule, the original Golden Rule store, but we've always operated the office on the Golden Rule. And we'll continue to do it.
You don't stay in business that long if you're not doing something right and doing people right, and you should be proud of that.
What's the word? Inheritance. And hopefully I'll do it right.
I believe you're doing good.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.